The delusion that we have of somebody will be crushed when they show us who they truly are. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Solutions Podcast. As always, I am your host, Ramsey, and I want to start by thanking today's episode sponsor. That's right, we got a sponsor, and guess who it is? That sponsor is me. Because guess what? If you do not invest in yourself, if you do not believe in yourself, then who will? And why should anybody else? That's what this episode's about. This episode is about becoming your own hero. Joe Rogan said it best. Become the hero of your own movie. Now, what does that mean exactly? Now, I'm going to paraphrase a little bit about what Joe Rogan said on his video. I don't want to plagiarize, but it is a good point. And as I've said many times, from every single event that I get an opportunity to, I learn and I dissect that information. In short, if you were watching a movie and you were the main character, at the point in life of where you're at right now, what would that character be doing? And whatever it is, do that. Imagine the hero of a movie going through the same situation that you are going through. How would they handle it? And do that. Do that exact thing. Then no way am I saying it's going to be easy, but it needs to be done. It needs to be done. You can't just walk around in life looking up to people that don't even amount to the amount of potential that you have, you just haven't displayed yet. So this takes me a little bit into a story about when I was going through a exercise where we have to talk a little bit about who our heroes are and who do we look up to and who our mentors are. And I always said the same thing. Well, not always, but because when I was growing up, that wasn't even like a question, right? But as I'm going through leadership schools and leadership lessons, those are things that they, for some reason, tend to harp on is like, who was your mentor? Who was your hero? What qualities did they have? But with a straight face, I would always say the same thing. Like, I don't have no mentors. I don't have no heroes. I don't look up to anybody. And they looked at me shocked. And I'm just like, nah, man, like, I look up to me. And others look up to me. How do I look like as a man looking up to another man that's more than likely going to let me down? I only choose if I let myself down. And that thing seemed to strike people different. I don't get it. I don't understand why it's such a hard concept. But for me, it's very easy. I have gone through life having too many experiences where I have trust in someone and I have believed that this person was a great person and a great example of someone to look up to. And sure enough, when you really get to know them, they're broken. They're weak. They don't work as hard. They don't put in everything that you put in. They don't even come close to the potential that you have. The only reason that they're in the position that they're in is because they had an opportunity and they took it. But imagine what you can do with that opportunity. I know with half of the opportunities that these individuals have gotten, if I just had half the opportunity, I would surpass them in a heartbeat. When I realized that growing up, I realized it's no longer about looking for mentors and looking for examples. It's about being that mentor and being that example and being that person for others to follow, being that person for others to look up to. But guess what? I will still disappoint some of y'all. I'd be lying if I say I wouldn't. I will still disappoint some of y'all. Why? Because I am not you. Only you can be the best version of you that you can be. I cannot do that for anyone. I will do my best. I will do my best to be the best example at all times. And it is hard. It is hard because it's not about what you do when everybody's looking. It's about what you do in your personal time. It is what you do when you're alone. It is what you do when no one can keep track of you. That is what separates the good from the greats. And most people that we think are somebodies, they ain't doing that. On their off time, you could see that they've been slacking. They're no longer as hungry as they used to be. They're not. And someone that's trying to eat realize maybe at one point they were who you wanted to be, but now it's time for you to be above them. That's what it comes to when it comes to being the hero of your own movie. Be the hero of your own story. Be the hero of your own life. Hell, be the hero to your kids. Be the hero to your spouse. Be the hero to the people around you. A lot of us don't even think about that. We don't even think about the people around us. Those are the ones that we should be impressing every single day. We focus on everybody else, but what about the people around us? Be a hero to them. But most importantly, be a hero to yourself. All right, so I'm gonna get off my soapbox for a little bit and get back to the opening line of this podcast, right? Our delusion of who we believe someone is will be crushed by who they truly are. Now, that is a very deep statement. And you recall a time in your life where that happened to you? Can you recall a time in your life where you met someone that you thought was great and that meeting kind of just fell flat? Like you were a little bit disappointed by that situation? How'd that make you feel? Did your perception of that individual change based on that altercation or based on that meeting? Did it? I'm sure it did. Reason why I'm sure it did is because it's happened to me way too many times, and that's why I'm here. And that's why I'm making this episode as well. I realized very young in my life that if I kept depending on looking at others for what is supposed to be, like what am I supposed to be, if I kept looking at other people, every time that I did, it would just be disappointing. It would just be disappointing when I really truly got to know them. It'd be really disappointing. They played a good facade for a while. But the thing about it is that human nature will force us to get closer and closer. And the more you get to personally know someone, the more you start seeing the flaws. And everybody's got them, so it's okay. Don't get me wrong. I got them flaws, you got them flaws, everybody's got them. But some of those flaws are so deep rooted into your values and doesn't match with them, right? Because one thing is having a flaw, like, I don't know. I can't even think of a flaw that's acceptable, right? But everybody has their own perception of what a flaw is. But some people, and I get it, being successful is very difficult. Being disciplined is very difficult. Being on top and having a whole bunch of people depend on you, it is not an easy thing. So they tend to develop really bad vices, really bad vices. And they'll either be like crazy alcoholics, they'll smoke a lot, they'll have some crazy fetishes, all kinds of madness. And I know some of y'all are thinking right now, who have you dealt with? Trust me, if you look around you, you'd be surprised the wild things that these people do. And that's what got me into the concept of just being my own hero. Like, what do I want to look up to? So try to get all the positive things from those horrible individuals and turn yourself into that, right? J. Cole said it best. You can get wise words from indecent men or indecent people. I always seen that. I always tell people you can get a lot of good information from horrible people. See, the thing that gets us, and that's why I opened up with saying the delusion that we believe of someone, right? Because we want to assume that they're perfect because we're putting them on that pedestal. We are doing that. They didn't put themselves there sometimes. We did because we assume that they are in these echelons above us, but realistically, they're just human like the rest of us. But me, I try to make sure that I am everything that I would want to look up to. So I try to be successful. I try to be athletic. I try to be strong. I try to be dependable. I try to be honest. I try to have integrity. I try to do all these things because I know that that is something and those are qualities that I will look up to. And it's not always easy, but it must be done. It must be done in order for me to be at peace. It must be done for me to be successful, and it must be done for me to be a good example for others to follow. And as leaders, and as solutioners, and as people that are trying to problem solve, those things need to be done. And we must not fall victim to them vices, those things that are out there to put us down or to keep us down. We must not fall to them things. So, how do we begin being the heroes of our own movies? Well, step one, start with writing the qualities that you believe a hero should have. Should they be strong? Should they be smart? Should they be wise? Should they be conniving? Should they be tricky? Should they be charismatic? Should they be able to walk into a room and have all eyes on them or not? Should they have two different identities, two different personalities? I mean, from cartoons? Maybe, right? But I cannot make that decision for you. That decision is 100% yours. But whatever the qualities you feel a hero should have, write them down. And that's where we begin. Step two is to cross reference those qualities with your qualities. And this is a time for self reflection. This is a time to break down that accountability mirror that I spoke about, right? Are you meeting those standards? Are you meeting those expectations? And if you're not, well, that's why we're cross referencing, right? So you start realizing where you might need some work on and where you already got it. Because obviously, especially if you're listening to this, you got to like yourself a little bit, right? You have to like yourself a little bit, and you have to be cognizant enough to know that you need to consume self improvement and leadership content. So you're doing something right. So don't be too hard on yourself either, right? But cross reference your qualities with those qualities that you wrote down. And if need, find a non biased partner that might know you and have them look at those qualities that you wrote down and see if they can circle the ones that they feel that you have and tell them to be honest and see a different perspective, right? Because there's different realities. There's how you see you and there's how people see you. So put those things into perspective for step two. Now that you have cross reference, it's time for step three, which is, of course, execution. Work on your weaknesses, but sustain your strengths. I'll say that again. Work on your weaknesses, but sustain your strengths. The reason why I have to emphasize the sustain your strengths is because too many times in everything that we do very good, we all of a sudden get very complacent in and we stop doing those things. Like a runner that's a very good runner wants to get buff and they start neglecting their running. And yes, you'll be able to sustain some of that stamina for a long time, but eventually it's going to give out. Eventually those runs are going to get harder because they stop sustaining their strengths, right? That's a very important part of your self-development is to sustain those strengths. But of course, You have to work on those weaknesses. I'll break it down like how I do in the gym. In the gym, the muscle that I feel needs the most work, I will ensure one that I put it at the top of the workout. I will make sure before I do anything else, that is the workout that I'm going to do. Two, I ensure that I double it up during the week. If that's my weakest muscle, I'm gonna try to figure out a way to incorporate it twice during that week or three times depending on the cycle that I'm doing during that period. The point is to work your weaknesses 2-to-1 ratio to your strengths, but does not mean that you neglect your strengths. That is step three, that is the execution. And last but not least, step four is to evaluate. Now, the only way you know when something is working is when you do a self evaluation or when you do an evaluation period, right? That's the only way to tell if something's been working, if something's changed for the better, for the worse. That's the only way to figure it out. Be honest with your evaluation because realistically, you're only competing with yourself at this point. You're only competing with your own potential. So, in conclusion, do not focus so much on finding a mentor. Do not focus so much on finding a hero. Do not focus so much on trying to find someone to look up to. Focus on becoming the hero of your own movie. Focus on you becoming the person that you are proud of. Focus on you being that example that you would want to follow to war, that you would want to follow to a business decision, that you would want to follow to an investment. Focus on you being the best version of yourself. That is it, solutioners. And thank you all for listening. Please do not forget to subscribe to the podcast. Please do not forget to subscribe to the Instagram page, the.solutions.podcast, and also on Threads and on X, The Solutions Podcast. You will find us. And if you don't, feel free to reach out. And that is it. I am out.